The restaurant was perfect. Candlelit tables, soft jazz playing in the background, and the kind of hushed atmosphere that made every whispered word feel sacred. I smoothed down my burgundy dress for the third time, trying to calm the butterflies that had taken residence in my stomach. Marcus had been acting strange all week. Secretive phone calls, nervous energy, that faraway smile that told me he was planning something. And when he'd insisted on taking me to Bellavista, the most expensive restaurant in the city, I knew. Tonight was the night. 3 years. We'd been together for 3 beautiful, complicated, wonderful years. We'd met at a charity gala where I'd accidentally spilled champagne on his designer suit. Instead of getting angry, he'd laughed. That deep, genuine laugh that made his eyes crinkle at the corners, and asked me to dinner as compensation for emotional damages. I fell in love with him that night. Not because he was successful or handsome, though he was both, but because when he looked at me, really looked at me, I felt seen in a way I'd never experienced before. "You look nervous," Marcus said, reaching across the table to take my hand. His palm was warm, slightly sweaty. He was nervous too. "Do I?" I smiled, squeezing his fingers. "Maybe I'm just excited." "About what?" "About us. About whatever comes next." Something flickered across his face, an emotion I couldn't quite read. Later, I would replay that moment 1,000 times, wondering if I'd missed a warning sign. But in that instant, all I felt was anticipation. The waiter brought our entrees. We talked and laughed, falling into the easy rhythm we'd developed over years of learning each other's stories, fears, and dreams. Marcus told me about a difficult client at his law firm. I shared my frustration about the gallery refusing to showcase my paintings. "They don't know what they're missing," he said fiercely. "Your work is extraordinary, Amelia. One day, they'll be begging for the chance to display it." This was why I loved him. He believed in me when I struggled to believe in myself. Dessert arrived, a chocolate soufflé we'd agreed to share. But Marcus barely touched it. He kept checking his watch, his leg bouncing under the table. "Marcus, are you okay? I need to tell you something." His voice was tight, strained. My heart hammered. This was it. The moment I'd been dreaming about. "Amelia, these 3 years with you they've been incredible. You're brilliant and creative, and you see the world in this beautiful way that makes everything brighter." I felt tears prickling at my eyes. "Marcus, but I can't do this anymore." The words hung in the air like broken glass. "What?" "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." He pulled his hand away from mine. "I've been trying to find the right time to tell you, and I thought maybe if I brought you here, somewhere public, I could." "You're breaking up with me?" My voice cracked. "In a restaurant. At Bellavista? I met someone else." The world tilted sideways. The soft jazz became jarring noise. The romantic lighting felt suddenly garish, exposing. "When?" I whispered. "A few months ago. I didn't mean for it to happen, Amelia. I swear I didn't. But we connected in a way that I didn't expect. A few months, while he'd been kissing me goodnight, while we'd been planning a vacation to Italy, while I'd been imagining what our children might look like, he'd been with someone else. Who is she? Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters to me." He looked down at his barely touched soufflé. "Someone from work. A paralegal who just started 6 months ago." 6 months. Half a year of lies. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Other diners glanced over, curious about the drama unfolding at table 7. "I hope she makes you happy," I managed to say, though the words felt like swallowing razors. I walked out of Bellavista with as much dignity as I could muster, held together only by pride and shock. It wasn't until I reached my car that I started crying. Deep, ugly sobs that shook my entire body. I drove home in a blur, barely seeing the road through my tears. My little apartment had never felt so empty. I collapsed on the couch, still in my burgundy dress, and cried until I had nothing left. At some point, I must have fallen asleep, because I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and my phone buzzing with messages. 12 missed calls, all from my sister, Claire. Claire and I had always been close, despite being complete opposites. She was the responsible one, stable job in finance, sensible apartment in a good neighborhood, practical shoes and realistic expectations. I was the dreamer, struggling artist, tiny studio with paint-stained floors, impractical choices and impossible hopes. But we'd always had each other's backs. When our parents died in a car accident 5 years ago, Claire had held me while I grieved. When she went through a brutal breakup, I'd shown up at her door with ice cream and terrible movies. She was my person. My safe place. I called her back. My voice still hoarse from crying. Amelia. Oh, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all morning. Are you okay? Marcus broke up with me. Silence. Then. What? When? Last night. At dinner. He's seeing someone else. That bastard. I'm coming over right now. Claire, you don't have to. I'm already getting my keys. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Have you eaten anything? She arrived with bagels, coffee, and righteous fury. For the next several hours, she let me cry on her shoulder, rage against Marcus's cruelty, and question everything I thought was real about our relationship. You're going to get through this, Claire said firmly, stroking my hair. It feels impossible now, but you will. And you'll find someone who deserves you. Someone who would never treat you like this. What if he was my someone? What if I never feel this way again? Then you'll build a beautiful life anyway. You don't need a man to be complete, Amelia. You're already whole. Over the next few weeks, Claire became my lifeline. She called every day. She dragged me out of the apartment when I wanted to hide. She reminded me to eat, to shower, to keep living even when living felt impossible. I don't know what I'd do without you, I told her one evening as we sat on her balcony, watching the sunset. You'd survive, because you're stronger than you think. She squeezed my hand. But you'll never have to find out, because I'm not going anywhere. Slowly, painfully, I started to heal. The sharp edge of grief dulled into a manageable ache. I started painting again, pouring my heartbreak onto canvas in violent splashes of color. The gallery that had rejected me before suddenly wanted to see my new work. Apparently, suffering made for compelling art. 3 months after the breakup, I was almost okay. Not happy, not yet, but functional. Moving forward. That's when Claire called me, her voice bright with barely contained excitement. Amelia, I have news. Big news. What is it? I met someone, and I think he might be the one. My heart swelled with happiness for her. Claire, that's wonderful. Tell me everything. How did you meet? What's his name? A pause. A beat too long. His name is Marcus. The world stopped spinning. What? I know it's a common name, but... Claire, what's his last name? Another pause. Longer this time. Thompson. Marcus Thompson. My Marcus. The man who'd shattered my heart 3 months ago? Amelia? Are you still there? I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't process what she was telling me. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I wasn't sure if it was serious. But now, Amelia, I'm in love with him. And he loves me too. The paralegal, I whispered. You're the paralegal? Silence. Then, quietly, yes. You've been seeing Marcus for 6 months? While I was with him. It wasn't like that. We were just friends at first. Colleagues. But then we started talking more, and there was this connection, and... He was my boyfriend, Claire. My boyfriend of 3 years? I know, and I'm sorry. But we can't help who we fall in love with. The betrayal cut deeper than Marcus's ever had. This was my sister. My person. The one who was supposed to have my back no matter what. How could you? My voice broke. How could you do this to me? I never meant to hurt you, Amelia. I never wanted this to happen. But it did. And now I have to choose between my happiness and your feelings. And you already chose. The moment you started seeing him behind my back, you chose. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? I was shaking now, anger and grief warring inside me. You held me while I cried over him. You told me I'd find someone better. And the whole time, you were the reason he left me. He would have left you anyway. What we have, it's real, Amelia. It's different than what you two had. Those words landed like a physical blow. Not only had she taken him, she was claiming what they had was better than what we'd shared. Don't ever call me again, I said, my voice cold and flat. Amelia, please. I hung up. The months that followed were the darkest of my life. Darker even than when our parents died, because at least then, Claire had been there to grieve with me. Now, I was mourning 2 losses. The man I'd loved and the sister I'd trusted. I threw myself into my work. The gallery loved my new paintings. Raw, visceral pieces that captured betrayal in brushstrokes and color. They gave me a solo exhibition. Critics called my work hauntingly authentic and emotionally devastating. I was a success, and I was utterly alone. Claire tried to reach out several times. Calls, texts, even a letter left at my door. I ignored them all. I couldn't bear to hear her voice. couldn't stand to see her name on my phone screen. Then, a year after that terrible phone call, an invitation arrived in the mail. Cream cardstock, elegant calligraphy, the kind of expensive stationery that Claire had always loved. You are cordially invited to celebrate the marriage of Claire Rebecca Morrison and Marcus James Thompson. I stared at it for a long time, this tangible proof of my worst nightmare. They were getting married. My sister was marrying the man who'd proposed to take me to dinner at Bellavista, only to break my heart instead. Except he hadn't proposed, had he? That's what I'd been expecting, what I'd hoped for. But he'd never intended to propose. He'd intended to end things, and I'd been too blinded by my own hopes to see the truth. I should have thrown the invitation away, should have ignored it, moved on. Let them have their happiness without my presence casting a shadow. But I couldn't. I needed to see them together, needed to understand what they had that I hadn't been enough to keep. Maybe it was masochistic, maybe it was foolish, but I had to go. The wedding was beautiful, of course. Claire had always had impeccable taste. The venue was a historic mansion with sprawling gardens, white roses everywhere, string quartet playing Pachelbel's canon. I wore black, perhaps petty, but I didn't care. I sat in the back, watching as guests filed in. Friends, colleagues, distant relatives who probably didn't know the complicated history behind this union. Then Claire appeared at the end of the aisle, and even through my anger and hurt, I couldn't deny she looked radiant, happy in a way I'd never seen her before. Marcus stood at the altar, watching her approach with tears in his eyes. The same eyes that had looked at me across countless dinners, lazy Sunday mornings, whispered conversations in the dark. They exchanged vows. Traditional ones, nothing particularly original or meaningful. But the way they looked at each other, there was something there. Something real. Maybe Claire had been right. Maybe what they had was different than what Marcus and I had shared. Maybe not better, but different in a way that worked for them. The realization didn't make it hurt less, but it made it make sense. At the reception, I stayed in the shadows, nursing a glass of champagne and wondering why I'd come. This wasn't closure. This was just reopening old wounds, does Amelia? I turned to find Claire standing beside me, still in her wedding dress, looking uncertain and hopeful. "You came," she said softly. "I don't know why. I'm glad you did." She twisted her wedding ring, a simple gold band that probably cost more than my rent. "I know you hate me. I know I hurt you in ways I can never take back. But you're my sister. You'll always be my sister. That's supposed to make it better?" I asked bitterly. "That we share DNA? No? Nothing makes it better. What I did was unforgivable." Her eyes filled with tears. "But I'm asking you to forgive me anyway. Not today, maybe not for years, but someday, because I miss you. I miss my sister." I looked at her, really looked at her. She seemed older somehow, more settled. Marriage suited her. Happiness suited her. And I realized, with a shock that went through me like electricity, that I didn't hate her. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But she was still Claire. Still, the person who'd held me through our parents' funeral, who'd celebrated every small victory in my artistic career, who'd known me longer than anyone else in the world. "I can't forgive you yet," I said honestly. "Maybe not ever. What you did, it broke something in me, Claire, something I'm still trying to fix. I know, and I'm so sorry. But I don't want to hate you either. So maybe someday, we can find our way back to something. Not what we had before. That's gone. But something new." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "That's all I can ask for." Marcus appeared then, slipping his arm around Claire's waist. He looked at me with something like guilt, something like apology. "Amelia," he said quietly, "thank you for coming. It means a lot." "Does it?" I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. Yes. Because despite everything, you're important to Claire. And anyone important to her is important to me. It was a pretty sentiment, probably even sincere. But it didn't erase the past. "I should go," I said, setting down my champagne glass. "Don't," Claire said quickly. "Please, stay. Have dinner, at least. I won't bother you again, but just stay a little longer." So I did. I sat through dinner, watching Claire and Marcus interact with their guests, seeing the life they were building together. A life that didn't include me, not really, but a life that existed nonetheless. 2 years have passed since Claire's wedding. We talk now, occasionally. Brief phone calls on birthdays, carefully neutral text messages about holidays. It's not what we had before, but it's something. She had a baby last month, a girl named Eleanor. She sent me a picture. A tiny, red-faced creature swaddled in pink blankets, with Claire's nose and what looked like Marcus's eyes. She's beautiful, I texted back. And meant it. I'd like you to meet her. When you're ready. I haven't replied to that message yet. I don't know if I ever will. My career has taken off in ways I never imagined. The gallery that once rejected me now represents me exclusively. My paintings sell for 5 figures. I've been featured in art magazines, interviewed by critics who call me one of the most compelling voices in contemporary art. I've dated, though nothing serious. It's hard to trust after betrayal that profound. Hard to believe someone when they say they love you, when you've learned that love can be conditional, transferable, stolen. But I'm working on it. Working on letting people in again. Working on believing that not everyone will hurt me the way Claire and Marcus did. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what my life would look like if Marcus had actually proposed that night at Bellavista. If he'd pulled out a ring instead of breaking my heart. If Claire had been my maid of honor instead of my rival. Would we have been happy? Or would he have eventually left me anyway, drawn to someone else who fit him better? I'll never know. And maybe that's okay. Because the truth is, as much as it devastated me, Marcus leaving forced me to become someone stronger. Someone who doesn't need a relationship to define her worth. Someone who creates beauty from pain, who builds a life from broken pieces. And Claire's betrayal taught me that family isn't always safe, that trust isn't guaranteed, that love can be complicated and messy and hurt like hell. But it also taught me that I can survive, that I can lose the 2 people I loved most and still wake up the next morning, still paint, still dream, still hope. Last week, I ran into them at a coffee shop. Claire was pushing Eleanor in a stroller, Marcus walking beside her with his hand on her back. They looked tired, new parent tired, but content. Claire saw me first. Her eyes widened, uncertain. I could have walked past, could have pretended I didn't see them. But instead, I stopped. "Hi," I said. "Hi," Claire breathed. "Amelia. This is Eleanor." I looked down at the baby, who was awake and staring at me with solemn dark eyes. "She's perfect," I said. And she was. Would you like to hold her?" Every instinct screamed at me to say no, to maintain my distance, to protect myself from any more pain this family could cause. But I found myself nodding. Yes, I'd like that. Claire carefully lifted Eleanor from the stroller and placed her in my arms. She was warm and solid, with that newborn smell that's part milk, part powder, part miracle. "Hi, Eleanor," I whispered. "I'm your Aunt Amelia." Claire's hand flew to her mouth, tears in her eyes. Marcus looked away, his jaw tight. I only held her for a moment before handing her back. But in that moment, something shifted. Not forgiveness, not exactly, but maybe the beginning of it. The first crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. "I should go," I said. "Wait," Claire said. We're having a small gathering next month. For Eleanor's baptism. Nothing big, just family and close friends. Would you come?" I looked at my sister, my complicated, imperfect, human sister, and the family she'd built with the man I'd once loved. "Text me the details," I said. "I'll think about it." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. And for now, that was enough. People ask me sometimes if I regret loving Marcus, if I wish I'd never met him, never opened my heart to someone who would ultimately break it. The answer is complicated. Yes, I regret the pain. I regret the months of crying myself to sleep, the trust issues that still plague my relationships, the way I sometimes look at my sister and feel a ghost of the betrayal that nearly destroyed me. But I don't regret loving him. Because loving Marcus and losing him taught me who I am. Taught me that I'm stronger than I knew, braver than I believed, more resilient than I'd ever had to prove. And Claire's betrayal, as much as it devastated me, taught me that forgiveness isn't about condoning what someone did. It's about releasing yourself from the prison of anger and hurt. I haven't fully forgiven her yet. I may never fully forgive her. But I'm trying. And that's something. Because at the end of the day, she's still my sister. She's still the girl who used to braid my hair before school, who taught me how to ride a bike, who called me every day when our parents died because she knew I couldn't survive the grief alone. She hurt me, but she was also there for me in ways no one else ever has been. And maybe that's the complicated truth about love and betrayal. They can coexist. You can hurt someone and still care about them. You can be betrayed and still choose connection. It's messy, It's painful. It's human. Last night, I finished a new painting. It's different from my previous work, less raw anger, more quiet acceptance. It shows two figures standing on opposite sides of a bridge, reaching toward each other across the gap. They're not touching yet. Maybe they never will. But they're reaching, and sometimes, that's all we can do.